Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video. Ada for not forgiving my cheating father. Because I'm not a native English speaker, please accept my apologies for any grammatical errors. Something significant occurred in my family while I was in elementary school. My mother, brother, and I took a vacation to meet our family on another continent one summer while my father remained at work. When we returned, things began to become strange. I was around 8 years old and heated. My mother had discovered some messages between my father and his brother's fiancée on his phone. They both lived with us. They essentially continued fighting every night for about a month after that. Things were continually in a state of agitation. I recall my parents, my mother's and father's brothers. Fortunately, the fiancé was out of the country at the time, myself and my younger brother, who was too little to comprehend. I had to personally call an ambulance twice for my mother because she was in such agony and anger that she became paralyzed. Then, one day after school, and much to my surprise, my godmother came to fetch me, and that's how I learned my mother had injured my father's arm with a knife. I don't know the specifics, but my mother was also arrested. Things began to improve after a while. They didn't say much, and I had to give meals to my father when he acquired a fever. Unrelated to the little wound, years have gone, things are nearly back to normal, and I honestly don't recall how things were before all of that. My mother maintains that she has forgiven my father, but I just cannot. What I do remember is feeling completely lost. I was there for all of the disputes, and they would both draw me in to use me as a shield. My mother would question me. I was the only one who knew Italian well enough about divorce attorneys. She was also attempting to figure out how to handle 3 children on her own. It didn't seem traumatic at the time, but I can see how it affected me today, regarding my mental health in a severe manner, so I began treatment and assumed it was all my father's fault. Now I treat him poorly. I seldom ever speak to him, and when I do, I'm cold and resentful. My parents both observed, and my mother warned me I shouldn't be acting like this. Ada, I believe that many children have been in similar circumstances. How do you handle it? Is it even okay for me to feel upset? Is it just me, or am I being petty? Story 2. Ada for donating baby stuff intended for my SIL baby. A brief clarification: when my SIL moved into my MIL home, she apparently became a born-again Christian. An acquaintance informed us that she felt this kid was a message from God to alter her ways, warn everyone about wrongdoing, and keep them from becoming sinners. I respect her ideas, but I didn't expect her to label us as sinners. My 34 female wife, 36 female, and I have been together for almost 7 years and have been attempting to conceive for the past 3 years using IVF and sperm banks. My wife intended to be the one to carry our kid, but after 2 unsuccessful IVF efforts, I decided to try the therapy. We had no luck, and both of us had to deal with the repercussions of miscarriages. This was a difficult moment for us, and we chose to adopt last year. Unfortunately, there is a stigma against same couples in adoption and fostering, so we had a difficult time communicating with the agency. We were interested in fostering and planned to give it a go. During this time, my SIL became pregnant from a one-night encounter, and while we were discussing adoption and foster parenting, she contacted us and said she wanted to give birth for religious reasons but did not want to be a single parent. She inquired as to whether we would be interested in adopting her kid. My wife was overjoyed, as did I when I suggested a formal contract. My wife told me she trusted her sister. We covered all of my SIL pregnancy-related expenditures: doctor visits, genetic testing, lab work, ultrasounds, and her strange desires at 3 a.m. We'd even paid her 3rd trimester rent. Because she was afraid, she opted on a C-section, and we paid for both the birth and the hospital stay. We came to see her shortly after she gave birth to discuss the transfer of rights to us. She informed us she was keeping the kid and would not give it to us since she didn't think we were ready for a baby yet. My wife was desperate. She wept herself to sleep for many days since we had put the adoption on hold and were preparing for the baby's arrival. My wife had painted the walls of her nursery herself. We realized that SIL was probably feeling maternal feelings and chose to donate all we bought for the baby to her since she was a single parent with no ready needs. We also chose to pay the remaining birth costs as a present to her. My wife insisted on getting all the assistance she could for her new kid. Went to my MIL home a few days after the event, and here is where my SIL now resides. I'd eavesdropped because she was on the phone, most likely talking to a friend of mine, and I heard the baby mentioned. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. She was telling a friend how she knew from the start that she wasn't going to give the kid to us sinners, and that her sister was to think she would allow us to brainwash her child. I was really taken aback. My SIL was never very close to me, but my wife considered her to be her greatest friend. I had no idea she was opposed to our marriage since she never expressed her feelings about it. Here's where I could be TA. I left my MIL house, returned home, and donated whatever I could fit into our SUV to a homeless shelter. I made 3 visits in all to distribute everything. I was very enraged. My wife returned home to find an empty room and inquired as to what was going on. I told her everything. While she was taken aback by her sister's responses, she informed me that I had no right to throw away the baby items since her sister really needed them. I couldn't understand why my wife would still defend her after what she said about her. My SIL, on the other hand, found out, and all hell broke out. She chastised me for being a single mother with a kid, how she needed these things, and how she didn't prepare for the baby's coming since she relied on us. I instructed her to kick rocks. I was beyond irritated to allow her to continue after she had spent over $10,000 on her costs. She informed me that these items were intended for this kid, and that I was wrong to give them away. My MIL contacted my wife to tell her how selfish I was for my actions, and that we should at the very least assist SIL with forthcoming bills, since my MIL is on a limited income and unable to assist in SIL, wants to concentrate on raising the kid rather than working. My belief is that we owe her nothing, and that we have already much assisted her, but my wife feels quite bad and wants me to assist a new mother. I realize she's in a difficult situation, but the manner she behaved is much beyond what I'm comfortable with. However, I also feel terrible since I may have placed the baby in jeopardy. I'm beginning to suspect that I was the jerk who donated the baby's items. So, Reddit, am I the jerk for not wanting to assist my SIL with her pregnancy expenditures and instead giving the items intended for her kid? Thank you for your thoughtful answers. Some of your responses prompted me to consider how I might approach the subject. I'll apologize to my wife since I didn't obtain her permission before getting rid of items that were also hers, and I didn't think about her emotions. I'll also talk to her about the possibility of counseling. This is all really weird, and I'll need some time to process some of the comments and reflect on everything. Also, many thanks to all of you who suggested looking into LGBT-friendly adoption facilities. I can't believe we didn't think to check into that. The adoption matter will be put on pause as we absorb all that has happened, but thank you for giving us hope. I'll probably publish an update after things have calmed down and I'm no longer angry/confused. Thank you for your time. Update. Hello everyone, it's been a while. I've been struggling with my heartbreak and have chosen to go off of Reddit. I couldn't stop crying just thinking about the newborn girl. I've been going to counseling and I'm feeling a lot better, albeit some grief remains. My therapist genuinely helped me in seeing that this issue was beyond my control and that I should not be blamed for anything. She agreed that giving without informing my wife was improper, but it was a small blunder in the scheme of things. Unfortunately, this is not a cheerful update, since my wife and I's relationship had deteriorated to the point where we decided to divorce. We are still friends, yet the termination of our relationship still hurts me. One positive outcome of this was that I was able to adopt a tripod stray from Turkey. He had survived the parvovirus and is the loveliest dog I've ever met. Our friendship is what keeps me happy and healthy in this scenario. After our divorce, my ex-wife eventually made contact with her sister, and I received images of the kid. She's an angel, and from what I've heard, she's always smiling. I requested my ex-wife not to send me any images of her for a time, since I am still recuperating. Thank you very much. As I went over your remarks, I felt quite grateful. I presented them to my therapist, who was astounded by the outpouring of support. She feels that all of my friends and family's support has really aided me in my therapeutic recovery journey. I've forgiven my SIL and have no ill will toward her. This does not imply that I will never contact her again, but I needed to forgive her in order to go on. If you are able, please make a donation to a charity for less fortunate children or animals. They are undoubtedly the most helpless creatures and need all the help they can receive.